Hi, everyone. This is another episode of Off the Post. I'm still not the red cap, but he's still MIA, so we're here again talking about, some stuff. NWSL semifinals, do a little bit about U.S. Women's National Team. As usual, if you want to hang out with us, hashtag WOSO Talk on social media. We'll check it out, answer any questions, or if you have an opinion, want to agree or disagree with us, whatever, let us know. We'll check in with our peeps down there. We'll start with Danielle. What's been up, Danielle? Long time no see.
Yeah, I guess we won a World Cup since the last time I was on, so that was pretty fun. No, there's a lot of FCKC games. I actually just got back from Chicago late last night, so been good.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. And then, Jen, what's been going on?
The same thing that's always going on. Work, school, the usual.
Sounds good. We'll just get right into it because, why not? Chicago versus FCKC. I will say on the preview show, our panel was split. Half said Chicago would win, half said that Kansas City would win. I won't say which. No, I'm just kidding. I was on Team Chicago, and clearly that was the wrong team to pick, but that's fine. So we'll start with Danielle. What were some of your expectations going into the game, and how do you think that both teams performed?
Yeah. Well, since I'm a little Homer-esque, I was feeling really good going into the game. Probably the best I felt all season. I think Chicago had been kind of going a little down, a little struggle, and I think that Kansas City has really found their chemistry. I think the style of soccer FCKC plays is very chemistry-driven, and I saw that in the last couple games, so I was feeling pretty good, and I thought both teams actually did good. Scoreline doesn't show it, but I thought Chicago actually played a good game. They had some chances. Unfortunately, FCKC's defense is so good. But yeah, I thought they both played great, to be honest.
Great. And then, Jen, what were some of your thoughts on the game?
Kind of the same thing. I was expecting maybe a little bit more out of Chicago, knowing that they were playing at home. I kind of thought that they might have a little bit more of a spark than they did, I guess. Obviously, yeah, I think everyone kind of agrees that maybe their goalkeeper choice was a mistake. But that was my one expectation. I did expect KK to start, especially with her retirement looming. But, it kind of, other than that, I really didn't have many expectations for that game. I thought it was kind of going to play out the way that it did. So, scoreline worked for me. Sorry, Graham, but after what you said about my spirit, I'm not that sorry at all. So.
Real quick, I thought starting Dalton was probably the best choice. I thought her chemistry with the backline is a little better this season. Unfortunately, she made some rookie mistakes. I thought it was a better choice, to be honest.
That's fair. Okay. I mean, she played the entire time KK was out.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of would have been like, Seattle playing Kottmeyer or it's kind of on those same lines. So that definitely makes sense because they had time to build more chemistry. I feel like once KK got back, maybe she got a little bit rusty.
Yeah.
So that was my feeling on that one. But I definitely see where you're coming from.
For sure.
Viewers, let us know who would you have started if you were Rory Dames. That's tough, actually, because I was actually a really big fan of Dalton. Still am. Like, I'm not a fan of Dalton. Like, I think she's really great during the World Cup. But, I don't know. I think, like, KK played last game. She was the player of the week for the last, game of the season. In my head, like, why not start her? She's got good momentum. She played great last game. It's kind of a big game. She she does have, more experience in these kind of, like, high-pressure situations. So I really thought they would have started her. I mean, Dalton's not a bad choice, but like you said, Danielle, a lot of kind of like the rookie, mistakes kind of showed through, and it was a really huge game. And, she still is a great goalkeeper, but I think you saw a little bit of that inexperience as evidenced by some of the mistakes that were made. And unfortunately, they were very costly. And, not just her, like Chicago back line. I think it was the second goal maybe that they just got beat Second or third goal, they just got beat, and you can't really. It's not necessarily on the goalkeeper at that point. The defense kind of just got and not much you can do about that. I think I'm glad. See, here's my thing. I love Kristen Press, but I feel like someone said on Twitter, and I wish I remembered who it was so I could credit them with saying this, but like someone said on Twitter, like, either Kristen Press thinks she can do it all, I think she has to do it all, but I think there were a lot of times that she forced stuff she didn't have to force. Like she would try to shoot through like 4 defenders. You're not going to do that against Kansas City. Or just tried to force certain, the ball a certain way and, took unnecessarily shots. And I think she could have. Sometimes the best option is to, take it back out, kind of reset, things like that. And so they definitely had really good possession, definitely had a lot of good opportunities, but I think a lot of it was forced. And, Kansas City's back line is crazy. So, and I kind of was eating my words a little bit. I kind of called out A-Rod on the last show about being a little bit inconsistent and not being able to finish, and then she did that. So hey, we're we can't always be right, and that's fine. I feel like she had a really good game, obviously, as did all of Kansas City, and like both teams. Chicago didn't have a bad game. They just had some errors that kind of came to bite them. So unfortunately, that's kind of a thing. What were some of the players who stood out to you, Jen?
Definitely A-Rod. I mean, her second goal. She kind of is always a standout player, I feel like, in Kansas City, just because even though she can't finish in the national team, she seems to do okay in Kansas City. But her second goal was phenomenal, shaking off all of those defenders and getting in behind and scoring that goal for her brace. That was huge. Timrak, the other goal scorer, her goal was pretty great too. Other than that, Barnhart, again, is fantastic. I love Barnhart. I will praise her up and down. I thought Lepelbit had a pretty good game. And otherwise, for Chicago, it's tough to pick out a particular player for Chicago that played well because they play so well cohesively as one unit that's a tough one. I thought maybe DiBernardo stood out to me a little bit. Motts. Other than that, just as a team, they work so well together that it's kind of tough to pinpoint one player.
Okay. Danielle, any other players that you thought stood out during the game?
Well, I thought, of course, always Becky Sauerbrunn is always a standout, and I saw a couple of videos of her. I think Our Game Magazine tweeted it, like just doing center back things, and it's just phenomenal. Probably the best. She's the best in the world. Barney, of course, I think that was her 9th clean sheet, which is so impressive considering she hasn't actually played every game this season. She sat out 2. So those 2 really stood out to me. And I thought Heo had a great game too, coming up and down the flank. And I've never actually watched a game from the angle I was at. Usually when I'm at FCKC games, we're behind the goal. Just watching her make her run, she's so smart because she knows exactly where that defender is to stay on. Like, I've never seen that angle. I just thought Heo was so good yesterday. I guess out of Chicago, their captain is always phenomenal. She made some really great runs. I was watching highlight videos this morning, and she looked like a forward out there. I mean, you thought that was Kristen Press. I thought Chalupny did amazing.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those said. I also I'm trying to think. Thinking is hard today. I agree with Chalupny. She was really in it, and not that she's normally not, but she was really making a lot of good runs and doing a lot of things with the ball. I also would say JJ. The whole defense got beat on one of those goals, but I think she made a lot of good clearances. I know one that was kind of right by the goal. She was able to head it out. And she's always a solid player for Chicago. And then I think, while she wasn't as effective as people I think maybe thought she was when Sofia Huerta came in, she did a couple good runs, maybe a couple chances. So I think she was a good substitution coming in there. But otherwise, ditto to everyone that I guess. I shout out to Timrak too because she has kind of had like I don't want to say an iffy season, but she was so dominant in previous seasons. So it was nice to see her really on it this game also. So that was really good to see from her as well. Were there any major moments in the game that stood out to you, Danielle?
I thought when Lauren took that ball from Dalton, I think that just started everything, and then the floodgates opened during that first half. I think momentum, because Chicago really dominated possession those first 10 or so minutes, so I really thought that was the moment.
Jen, any major moments?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of said it already with A-Rod's second goal. I thought her skill on that was just phenomenal. It almost looked like watching Crystal Dunn get in behind the back line and do her thing. So it was really nice to see her step up and take that.
Yeah, and I'll ditto to both of those just because those, if I were going to pick moments, I would pick one of those. So we'll go with that. So yeah, congrats FCKC, second straight year. I mean, both teams second straight year. Having a rematch of last year, but so we'll move on to the Spirit versus Reign game. First of all, I guess we can talk about, Jen, if you want to talk about your thoughts on if Krieger not playing did impact the game, and if so, how?
I don't think it did. Honestly, I think the result would have been the same. Yeah, Krieger, had she played, would have probably played in the midfield. I don't think Mark would have changed her back to the defensive line at that point. And I mean, our D-line was fantastic. Whitney Church massively stepped up. Oyster stepped up. So our D-line was fantastic all night. And our midfield, for the first half, Angela Salem played really well. Christine Nairn in there, she did a fantastic job. So I don't think having Krieger in there would have impacted too much, to be honest. For me, it was an issue with connecting. I think that's why we got shut out, because there was just an issue connecting the three lines. The defense couldn't connect with the midfield, and the midfield couldn't connect with the forwards, and there just wasn't enough forward movement. And with Krieger's job being a holding midfielder, I don't think she would have been able to push forward either. So I'm not sure having her would have made an impact. I think it still would have ended up the way it ended up.
I probably agree with that. I think, I don't know, I think in that role, I know, Parsons says that she's been used to, lock down other players. We saw her in the last game against the Spirit in the regular season that she was kind of on Kim Little duty. But I don't think, especially in the first half, and even really in the second half, I don't really think that was, I don't think that was lacking in the game. So I think in that sense, I don't ever want to say, I don't think Allie Krieger was missed because she's a great player, but, in the role that she's had for the Spirit, I don't know that I would agree. I don't know that they're missing her too much, because I think the role that she would have filled was filled quite nicely by, everyone else on the team. So, all right. Before we get into the actual game, I guess this is part of the actual game potentially, but heading into this game, what are some of the things that you saw from, this is for Danielle, that you saw from the Spirit and Reign that you thought would be beneficial to them, or potential issues leading into the semifinal?
I'm sorry, Jen, but I feel like the issue for the Spirit, I feel like it was most of the season very dependent on Crystal Dunn, and you probably agree. So I just saw that as an issue going into the game, and knowing the Reign, knowing how dominant they are, the writing was there, in my opinion. So that was a big thing for me. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game, because I was driving back from Chicago. So I didn't get to see anything, but I was following it and all that.
Awesome. So we'll just, kick it off. Jen, what were your expectations going into the game, and how do you think that both teams performed?
I tried not to have any expectations, just because, the teams, I guess, logistically are so different. You look at the Spirit, who the roster this year was almost entirely new. I mean, we have 2 new rookies in our back line. Kelsey Weiss is a new acquisition. Angela Salem is a new acquisition. Joanna Lohman is a new acquisition. And then midway through the season, we ended up with 4 new national teamers, 3 from Nigeria, 1 from Australia. Half of our roster, more than half of our roster, I think, was all new acquisitions. And you compare that to a Seattle team who had like 2 new players on their roster. So they've had more time to build up team chemistry. They've had more time to build up the kind of dominance that they have. Whereas for us, it's we're not necessarily a team that's new to the sport, but we're a team that's new to each other, and sometimes that can be more challenging. So I've really tried to not have any expectations. I just wanted them to go out and give it the best game they could, and I think they did that. So I will praise the Spirit nonstop for that, because they held them scoreless the entire first half, and so for that I commend them. I commend them for getting to the playoffs with such a new roster, and for having several rookies and finding their stride. They really did perform well all season. So this game for me doesn't take away from that. But Seattle again is just, they're dominant. So it was a good win for them. It sucked because I saw Bev come on and I was like, oh yay, it's Bev. Oh shit, we're gonna lose. So that's kind of how that went. But and it played out like that. So it was cool to watch that game. I think even though it was a 3-0 loss, just because Ashlyn Harris was ridiculous all night, and B, I always love watching my team win or lose. But also Mark Parsons, that was entertaining. He made that game for me with his random yelling right next to the microphone.
Crystal!
Exactly. But he does that at games too. It's just not as noticeable, I guess, because normally I hear Ashlyn over him. But it's whatever. But no, the one thing I do have to comment on what Danielle said. Everybody all season, not just our team, has been relying on Crystal Dunn, and this was something I said to you, Courtney, that even the commentators, we have other players on our team. Stop just talking about Crystal Dunn, because everybody's in that mindset of, well, if Crystal Dunn doesn't score, the Spirit are screwed, and that's not the case. But it is what it is. We'll get him next season.
Oh yeah.
And Danielle, from you said you were kind of following on. What were your impressions of the game? And was there anyone that you thought, just from the highlights that you kind of were checking out, following along with, that you thought stood out to you? And I guess, like I said, just some general thoughts on the game overall.
Well, like I said, I was driving back, but I had my friend in the car, so we were kind of following on Twitter. And I mean, it just sounds like Harris had such a phenomenal game, and I think she does come up big a lot in those games where she's standing on her head, and she's just great for them. But it kind of, you talking about Bev being subbed on, and you're like, oh no. In the car, it was really update. Goebel just got subbed on. She refreshed a second later, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "She didn't score it. She scored." So, but yeah, I thought from what it sounded like, I mean, just Harris having a great game kept them in there, but Seattle's just so dominant, so it's hard. I was really hoping the Spirit would pull it off, though. I really, really, really wanted them to.
Me too. We're in that boat together.
Yeah, I think it was a great game, to be honest. I mean, the second half was a little sad for me just because all the goals happened for the wrong team, but the wrong team that for me, people obviously, there's a lot of Reign fans, so props to them. But I think in usual fashion, the first couple minutes of the game, I had that heart attack of oh my goodness, why is the backline horrible, and why is Ashlyn Harris having to do all the things at one time? And that was really dicey. I was just oh my goodness, they cannot do this for 90 minutes. This is not how this game can go for 90 minutes, or things are going to happen. And then they got their crap together and they picked it back up. And I think as the half went on, they didn't necessarily have that many, offensive chances, which I think was the issue for the game, really, is they didn't have a lot of chances. So even when they went down, there was kind of like, well, are they gonna come back from 1-0, maybe 2-0? Probably not, just because, they were having trouble producing and like actually having a whole lot of chances. Again, we didn't really challenge Hope Solo. Crystal Dunn did on that weird shot cross. We don't really know what that was thing, but other than that, she didn't really. Once again, kind of reminiscent of the final game of this regular season, didn't really have a whole lot to do. But I think, great kind of recovery. Like I said, those first couple minutes, I was like, oh, the Spirit are in trouble. This is going to be a long night. But they got their crap together. The defense really picked it up, which was great. So that was a thing. And, or just ignoring the door at the moment. But so that, that was really great for them. And, I don't know what it was. I don't know if, like, Dunn just kind of, again, if people were too dependent on Dunn. Or if, and I don't think she had the best game either. She had a couple of, when she got the ball, a couple of bad touches here and there. But, again, everyone's kind of reliant on you, so that's a challenge. But, overall, I think that they played a good game. So it's unfortunate that the second half kind of happened and, like, all the goals for Seattle occurred all at one time. But then, Seattle was Seattle, but again, I think at least especially the first half, a lot of the really big threats kind of got shut down. Like there were those couple chances early on, like the first 10 minutes or so, but then after that, it was kind of like, not a whole lot of danger. Obviously they still had some great chances, but it wasn't crazy like, the first beginning of the game was. And then I think I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, Bev's coming on. Oh, Bev scored a goal. Welp. And then you had to have, honestly, had to expect that somebody else in that midfield, whether it be Rapinoe, Little, Fishlock would have scored, and, that happened. And I'm going to say it, this is sad, like, Mariah Bullock is her name now, but it was Mariah Noguera. I'm glad she scored her first goal, maybe in NWSL, definitely for the Reign. So as much as I was sad to kind of see that happen, I also enjoyed when people score their first goal, so that was good also. And I just talked a lot, and so I'm going to stop talking. Well then, I'm going to stop talking. And just, were there any major moments, again, Danielle, I know you were kind of following along on Twitter, but anything that stuck out to you as you were kind of following along that was like, oh, hey, that's really awesome?
I think it was Bev being subbed on and scoring within a minute. I mean, just boom, boom. And then as soon as it happened, I mean, I turned to the person I was in the car with. I was like, it's over. I mean, just that punch in the gut, in my opinion, of someone scoring that fast. Ugh, it was sad. But that's all I know, because, again, I didn't watch it. But, yeah, that being scored on or subbed on.
No, that's fair. I mean, driving home from Chicago, it's kind of a big deal. So,
I think I have a good excuse. Maybe.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We'll cut you some slack there. But, no, we're glad that you're following along and at least kind of got to experience some of the game because it was a really great game. Jen, any big moments of the game for you?
I don't know. Bullock's scoring was kind of a big moment because, again, it was her first goal. So that was nice to see. I don't know that it was one particular moment, but just something that I noticed. Megan Oyster and Whitney Church in the back line, they've been kind of working together all season. They both came in as rookies, and something that I finally started to notice them doing last night, which was amazing. Oyster would go out to defend someone on the flank, and Whitney Church would fill her role in the center. Like, the two of them were just interchangeable all night. And I think that's what made the back line so strong last night. So it wasn't one particular moment because they were kind of doing it all night, but that was really awesome to me. So that was cool.
Excellent. And, I don't have just one moment, but I'm going to go ahead and say all the Ashlyn Harris saves just because, once again, I kind of had that mentality early on in the game, like, oh, and I think I tweeted about it too, was like, oh, here comes the game where Ashlyn Harris has to save the Spirit again. Because no disrespect to the Spirit, but that's happened, on a couple of occasions this season where you're just like, oh, thank God Ashlyn's there because she really just, And I guess it makes me a little bit sad because I feel like a 3-0 score line is kind of unfortunate for her just because like she made so many amazing saves. But those are my moments of the game are like all the Ashlyn Harris saves. Because like some of them were like, oh, the ball went to her and she saved it, but some of them were just like, oh my gosh, like you're amazing and like a ninja and that's fantastic. So yeah, that's my moment of the game is like all the Ashlyn Harris saves. So here we are again, where I'm sure we're going to have a show previewing the final, so we won't really talk about it here, but rematch of, well, I guess we'll ask this, like rematch of last year, but obviously, Danielle, I know you're happy about one of the teams going in, and I know like Jen and I are probably not happy about the other team, but what are your thoughts on having kind of a, and especially in a year where there was so much more parity in the league, like what are your thoughts on having the final end up being a rematch? We'll start with Danielle.
Well, I mean, rematches are good when you're the team that lost the first time because you definitely have the narrative behind you. So as a fan of the team that won last time, I'm like, ugh.
We're going to do it again.
Yeah. I think it's nice. As a fan, I like playing Seattle because no disrespect to Seattle Reign fans, I love to hate Seattle. They're my least favorite team. So it's kind of fun playing a team you just don't like, especially – I'm going to go, so being in Portland surrounded by other fans who don't like the team. But I like it. There was a lot of parity this year, but I think the two clubs have consistently been some of the, best in the last 3 seasons. I mean, yeah, Seattle's first season was pretty bad, but they actually had a pretty good end of that first season. It's just two clubs who have just dominated the whole, 3 seasons. So I think it's nice in a way. But it would have been nice to get a club like the Spirit who had, who started at the bottom and ended at the top. That would have been, to me, a better storyline. But
were these the two teams that you thought were going to be in the final at the beginning of the season?
Before the season, yes. After a few games, no. I didn't have that feeling. I mean, I hate to say it. I didn't have the feeling that we would have made the final. FC Casey had some chemistry problems, especially during the middle of the season. But then at the end, yeah, I knew Seattle would do it. They're just dominant. But I just wasn't sure about my club.
Jen, your thoughts on the kind of having a rematch in the final, and were these two teams that you thought were going to end up being in the final?
I feel like it's the year of rematches in women's soccer. But hopefully. Sorry, Karen and Jackie and Neil. Hopefully the result is not, Seattle beating the snot out of Kansas City 5-1 like we beat the snot out of Japan 5-1. So, I mean, no, these are not the two teams I thought were going to end up in the final. I thought the Spirit, honestly, were going to beat Seattle in our last home game of the season. I thought it was going to be a Seattle Spirit final, which I would have loved to see, but... Again, there's next year. Danielle's got the point of, rematches being great for the team that lost because they go in there with a different mentality. And I think Kansas City's going to run into the problem this year where, yes, it's in Portland, and everybody in Portland really hates the rain. But at the same point, it is closer for Seattle fans to travel than it is for Kansas City fans. So I think Seattle might actually have quite the following being in Portland. Honestly, I think it's going to be an even split, so I can't say that Seattle's going to have a home field advantage because it's literally going to be half of the stadium cheering really loudly for Seattle and the other half of the stadium like wanting to burn down the stadium. So, I mean, that's kind of my thought on that, so I can't really say they're going to have a home field advantage. But I think the fans that are there might benefit them quite a bit. So that's a tough call. I feel like Seattle might come out on top this year.
All right. This is hard for me because, I mean, I love a good rematch. As someone who normally, historically in sports, minus a couple times, am cheering for people. Well, in some sports, I mean mostly in like baseball. As someone I'm a big, or any sport, I'm a big like underdog person, and I'm not saying like either team's an underdog, but I love like just the story of, oh, you got beat last year and now you're gonna come back and it's like a rematch and like vengeance and all that, and like I like that idea. I don't want the Reign to win, but I like the idea of that. So like the idea of a rematch was kind of, I guess if it was any other teams, I would be like, yeah, a rematch. This is excellent. But personally, just because I don't know that I don't think I want Seattle to win. I'm kind of like meh. But I think as in like for I think it'll be a very entertaining final. I think people who like that kind of thing and either like the Reign or don't care about either team will love the fact that it's a rematch again. I think it's interesting in a year that there was so much more parity in the league that the final is a rematch, but I guess that's just a testament of like ultimately these teams were, the strong teams, and the playoff teams were almost minus Chicago were the same essentially. So while there was a lot of parity, I think that the best teams that people probably expected. I think in the beginning of the season, I don't know that I would have thought Seattle and Kansas City would have been in the final. As the season went on, I really didn't think Seattle and Kansas City would be in the final. And then I think kind of when we got towards like the second half of the season, like later, maybe third of the season, I was kind of like, all right, I could totally see this happening. While we had a lot of teams technically, the Dash were in the running to make the playoffs still for a while. Even the Flash were in the running to make the playoffs for a while. Even though numerically that's kind of how it all worked out. I really didn't necessarily see either of those teams making the playoffs. So, and then Portland also, I actually probably thought Portland would have been at least in the playoffs at the beginning of the season just because they're Portland, and yes, they were missing all these people during the World Cup, but they're still a very solid team. But
they were until they got Sanderson. Just saying.
I'm gonna leave.
Throwing it out there.
I'm gonna leave that there. Just gonna leave it there. But yeah, I think it'll be entertaining, and even being in Portland, like I agree with Jen, it could be either way with the fans because yes, a lot of them love to hate Seattle and the Reign, but they're close enough that it's a pretty easy trip for a lot of Seattle people to make up there or up there, down there. I don't know my geography to make to Portland. Up, thank you. I'm like, I don't know where.
I had to think about it.
Wait,
are you sure?
Is it? I don't know.
I don't see. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
we're gonna Google this. Hang on.
I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave that alone because
when I took the bus from Vancouver, I came down to Seattle, and there are people going back to Portland. So I believe Seattle's closer.
So many people are gonna be like, these fools don't know their geography. I'll be honest.
Is under Washington, isn't it? Like the state of Oregon is under Washington.
Yeah. So
it's down.
Down.
Seattle would travel down. Okay.
Wow. This is rough.
That's it.
This is rough.
Sorry, folks.
We haven't stopped in like a week, guys. Sorry.
Off the post, we are knowledgeable about women's soccer and NWSL, not so much about geography. So there's the trade-off. Good thing this isn't like off the post geography special. Maybe we'll make one though. I don't know. Shout out Karen, who just is like, Oregon's under Washington. Thank you.
You can ask me about like body parts, and I got you, but I don't know where the states are.
That's fine. So we've established that down to Portland. But either way, I think I was kind of miffed with the final was going to be in Portland initially because I was like, of course it'll be in Portland, really. But like the more I think about it, I'm kind of like, if you're going to have a neutral place, I get it. You're going to have a good atmosphere there, and I really think that that's what the final could use. So that's a good thing. So stay tuned because I'm sure we'll have I'm not sure. We will definitely have a show before the final. One last question before we move on to national team stuff. Do you guys think, there's however many days, a couple weeks till the playoff, till the final, like, do you guys think that there's going to be a problem for either team? We'll start with Jen.
Nah. I mean, I really don't. I think they established themselves enough, like during the World Cup and through whatever else, that I don't think really they're going to be affected too much. I think they're both going to be just as solid as they have been, and yeah.
Fair. Danielle, your thoughts?
I think they'll be fine. I'll admit I was worried a little bit because FCKC is so chemistry driven, the one pass at a time, just the style of soccer they play. So I was worried for a little bit, but I think we'll be fine. I think both teams will be fine. So.
I think both teams will be fine. What I'm curious about is how NWSL is going to keep interest in the NWSL for like these 2 weeks after doing nothing. Like we've had game after game after game. Okay, the season ended. We've had games every week. We had semifinals this week right after. So the NWSL has always been on the forefront. These games have been on. There's been games on stream. There's been games on Fox Sports. And the games are on Fox Sports, and now we kind of have like maybe people watching that don't necessarily regularly watch NWSL, but they're like, okay, cool, this is awesome, semifinals, playoffs, this is cool, watch. But now there's this 2-week gap, and my only concern is that I don't think people are going to. People who obviously follow the league, that are actual fans will know, hey, we're interested, we want to watch the final on October 1st, but I think the league kind of has a problem where for those people who maybe are not like diehard, I've watched every game this season, fans of a specific team that we're potentially tuning in, trying to keep that interest so that they will, hey, remember there's a final on, and still be interested in the league enough to want to watch the final. So this is something to think about. For most people who are like generally following the league, it's not going to be an issue because they're like, hey, we watched this all season, like we're good. But just a kind of point to think about.
Well, hopefully during the national team games, because we have the 2 Victory Tour games, they'll promote it, especially.
Great point.
I believe they're switching, one's ESPN, one's Fox, I believe, right? Was that the deal? So hopefully, especially the Fox one, I hope they just promote the heck out of it. And that might help keep the interest going.
I mean, they were really good even for the games. They're not going to say, like, on Fox Sports, but even the game that was on ESPN, like, they definitely mentioned NWSL, and I'm sure that will be – that's a really good point, and I'm sure that will be on the forefront during the commentary. And that's one thing I appreciate about the national team games, that they have been really sure to mention NWSL, and that's super appreciative. And I'm appreciative, like they're doing us a favor. They should be mentioning the NWSL during the national team broadcast. Like, I don't know why I just said that. Like, you should be talking about it, so I'm glad that they are, but, like, they're not doing anyone – they should. That's the expectation. So I'm glad that they're actually following through on that.
You're appreciative because it hasn't been that way in the past, probably.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's exactly it. I am appreciative because even though I expect that like that's what you should be doing, I'm appreciative that they actually are, because in the past it may not have been the same thing. Anyways, moving on. USWNT preview. We're probably not going to go into like a full preview like we normally do, but two main points that I want to bring up. Meaning, what are your thoughts on Haiti being the filling in for Australia, and the second one being, what do you think on Crystal Dunn being named to the roster? So we'll start first on thoughts about Haiti, and we'll start with Danielle.
I mean, I hate blowout. Not saying necessarily it's going to be, but I'm not a big fan of the Costa Rica game, the 8-0. So I hate that. But Haiti was the right choice. They were going to play Australia. It just made sense. Short notice. You can't expect Canada to come at our beck and call and pull together a team for a friendly. It's unrealistic. It's not fair to them. So as much as I'm not thrilled about watching a game against Haiti, and that's no disrespect to them, I really do want the best for Haiti, but I'm not looking forward to watching it, but it was the right choice.
Jen, thoughts on Haiti?
Yeah, I mean, to give some perspective here, like, I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout, but Costa Rica, I think, is ranked 34th, and I'm pretty sure Haiti is ranked 63rd. So, it might be a blowout. So I think, in that sense, a lot of the fans are disappointed, just because, we've been watching this Australia team kind of grow and find their own potentials and everything. And that would have been an exciting game. I think Haiti will be exciting for different reasons, because they're growing as well. They're not growing at quite the same rate as Australia or quite the same rate that we are, but they're still growing as well, and they have a lot of potential that they can grow into, and they're developing a program. So them playing a team like the United States, where we're World Cup champions at this point, we've got 3 stars above our crest, for them to have that opportunity, that's a huge growth opportunity for them. So I'm kind of excited that we're going to be playing Haiti and helping a team who is ranked 63rd right now develop a little more.
Yeah, I agree with those things. I think of, and I've seen this a lot on Twitter, I think of again, I love a good, story and a good, like, touchy-feely moment. But I think of, Haiti when the whole qualifying thing was happening with, like, Trinidad and Tobago, who were offering to send money that they didn't even really have to help them. And now they're, whether it's a blowout or not, like, I don't want to say I don't think matters, but the fact that they're now going to have the opportunity to play the world champions in front of, like, 30,000 people for each game is, like, amazing. And I think that that's great for them. It's great exposure, like I said, whether it's a blowout or not. Like, it's great for them to have the opportunity to play on a stage that's big. That's that big. Words are hard. So I think that's a really great opportunity for them. They've never played the U.S. in a friendly before. They played them during qualifying, but just in the sense of just hey, we're just having a friendly game. I think it was the last time they played them. They won. U.S. won 6-0. So we'll see what happens. I think that was really the best team they could pull together at such short notice. Like I said, it's a great opportunity for them, and it should be I know people wanted to see an entertaining match, which they would have seen probably more of a close match against Australia. But I'm just glad that they're able to find an opponent, and the people are still going to get to see the national team. Because again, I say you're when you buy a ticket to the national team game, like, you want them to play a cool opponent, but, like, I want to see the national team play, and so people are still getting to do that. So ultimately, that's kind of my thoughts on that. I mean, certainly, I understand people being upset about not playing Australia, but at least the game's still going on. They can see the national team. Moving on, Crystal Dunn being added to the roster. I think that's something people were hoping or expecting would happen. What are your thoughts about that, Jen? And do you think she'll actually play?
I'm actually not entirely okay with it. Just because she was called up as a defender. And
yes,
for me, that's problematic.
Was that going to be your rant later? Because that might have been my rant later.
No, for me, it just prime example. We saw it with Ella Master this season playing in Houston. She played D most of the season. We put her back up top, and what happened? Immediately, she started scoring goals again, going right back into her rhythm, finishing things off for Houston. So the fact that Crystal Dunn has scored 15 goals this season for the Spirit against, Hope Solo, against Barney, against, these phenomenal goalkeepers, the fact that she's back on D, I don't know what Jill Ellis is trying to do to me here, but it's not okay. So I'm so thrilled for her that she got called up. I think she absolutely 100% deserves it, but I think she should be playing forward because our forwards can't score goals worth crap anyway, so why not put one in who can,
That's fair. Danielle, what are your thoughts about Dunn being added?
Well, I obviously I'm glad she's there because she should have been there. She should be there. But you talking about her being in as a defender kind of reminds me of a camp. I think it might have been during the Sermani era where Ko was brought in as a forward, and then they played her as a defender. So hopefully, hopefully they play Crystal Dunn in the right position. Hopefully it's just one of those technicality things like what happened with O'Hara. But I'm excited. I would want her to get in there, start getting that chemistry going again, get us ready for 2016. So.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a good sign. I know when I went to the media stuff for the first game in Pittsburgh that Ellis was talking about, the very first games being, really a celebration. Then she was going to have to start looking into, Olympic prep. So I think the fact that we're seeing Dunn called to the roster, yes, there are trimmings of the roster that have to happen still, even with some retirements. But I think the fact that she's being called up is a pretty decent indication, depending on how she's doing at camp and stuff like that, that she does at least have a shot of making the Olympic team, which I think all of us think that she should be. So, and all this, my little mini rant, all I was going to say is I agree with that. I think that it's when you call the NWSL Golden Boot winner up as a defender, she's played there before for the national team. She's played there before. I was actually a big proponent of Dunn and Krieger on the outside for, as outside backs for the longest time. But it just kind of irks me. Like, oh, you have the Golden Boot winner, and you're going to play her as a defender or call her into camp as a defender. But you never know. I think, you're right, Danielle. I know a couple years ago, 2 summers ago now, I think they played France in Connecticut, and O'Hara was called in as a forward, and she played left back, or she played right back. So, who knows? But yay for Crystal Dunn being on the roster. That's outstanding, amazing, all of the above, excellent. Yeah.
Hopefully it's the start of more people being called up for these.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting fact. Like, even though they have to technically trim the roster down, I would love to see if people. I know. Part of me thinks it's the third game, victory tour game. We're starting with Crystal Dunn. Who knows? By the time we get to the end of these games, who we'll see in, because we have these 2 games, and there's we have games in October listed already, and there's still some games that haven't been announced yet, so we've got a while to go on this victory tour. So it'll be interesting to see who pops up on this event, on this roster. So there's that. I'm sure we'll probably have some shows talking about the games, but the first one is
Thursday.
On Thursday. Thank you, because I didn't even realize that we're talking before the show, and I was like, oh my God, it is Thursday. Hey. First game's on Thursday, so make sure you check that out. We'll probably talk about it on how the game went and stuff like that on a later show. Wrapping things up here, does anyone have anything to rant about?
Not really a rant, but this has been just oversaid. Everyone's been saying this on social media, so this isn't new. But the scheduling for the playoffs is just awful. I think everyone can agree. Being in Chicago. The attendance numbers look really low, I think, and I know people were saying that they were told to move forward to look for TV. The Chicago game yesterday was at the exact same time as the Bears-Packers game, so not just any game, a big rivalry in Chicago. Obviously, you didn't know Chicago was going to host, but opening weekend of NFL playoffs, it just could have been done so much better.
Well, I think even for the finals. Granted, the finals at 9:30 because it's in Portland. It's at 9:30 Eastern time. So for people who work or can't be up till midnight, that's late for them potentially. And you still have football on Thursday night. There's still football on Thursday night. I get for the TV they had to move it, but on a Thursday night, there's still football on. You're still competing with football. Granted, Saturday you're competing with college football. Sunday you're competing with NFL, but still, on a Thursday, that's one of 2 things that's on is college football, and then whatever Grey's Anatomy's on and all that stuff too. So people man, I think I want to watch a soccer game. I'm kind of a casual NWSL fan, but oh my God, Grey's Anatomy's on. What's gonna happen in this? You know what I mean? That's just an example, but mostly football is still on Thursday. So people were saying, oh, I would have watched these semifinals, but football was on. If your football team's on that night of the final, you're not gonna watch the NWSL final. So there's that. But I don't really think I have a rant. I guess I meant to rant about this the other day when we were ranting about Oyster not being on the Rookie of the Year ballot. But I am still my delayed rant would be the fact that there were national team members who were on eligible for who were finalists for the season awards, just because I think that's a little bit crazy. I'm not even season awards, because I don't really remember how many of them were actually in the finals for actual voting awards, but even for and I'm not gonna lie, I voted for some of them for best 11, but it's hard to I guess to really think about someone getting a something of the year award. And I do think there were a couple. I can't think of the exact finalists, but I think there were a couple who were actually in categories also. But it's just difficult to think. I get it, and you were with the team, you contributed amazingly. High fives, good for you. That's awesome. But it's hard for me to think you missed more than half the season. And I would like to see people who were there the whole year playing and busting their butts, having some recognition. But that's just my delayed mini rant, which is really not relevant because that's over at this point. So whatever. Any final thoughts about anything?
You know who else is eligible for best 11?
Tobin Heath.
Leanne Sanderson.
Oh, you had to go back.
Also, she didn't play any games. She didn't play any games in Portland. Like,
I mean,
she left Arsenal, and then it took her forever to decide she was going to sign with the team and bitch at social media while she was doing it. And then she finally signed with Portland and played, like, 3 games, and that was it. So, following up with what you said, it's annoying that players who played a very minimal amount of time are eligible for stuff like that.
to be fair, I do think for like the best 11, I think that pretty much just everybody in like that was on a roster is eligible. But I get what you're saying. If you have enough fans of a certain player, especially with the fan voting, if you have enough fans of a certain player, it could just end up there and didn't play like any games. So I get what you're saying, but I think I don't know that was a I think that was just like everyone's on a roster, you're eligible to be voted for the best 11. But I definitely get what you're saying, and I'm not going to comment on anyone specifically. I'm not going to go there, but yes to what you're saying. Right on. I'm going to not get myself in trouble. Well, I'm not going to get myself in trouble both ways, because now I can get in trouble no matter what I say. So I'm going to just carefully choose my words and abstain from this conversation anymore. Whew, I need Karen's hat. Anyways, shout out to Karen and her hat. Final thoughts.
I miss my other half.
Anything that happened.
My other half and her hat.
Well then. So yeah, now that my brain just kind of had a short circuit, we're gonna just end this show. Hey, thanks for checking in, everybody. If you have any like comments after the fact, still tweet us. That's fine. We like to chat. I do want to say I noticed that people were tweeting at the Off the Post account last game, and the person who does that was able to actually tweet back. But if you want to talk to us while we're on air, just use the hashtag WOSOTalk, just because we don't all have access to view the replies of the like on the Off the Post account. So use the hashtag, even though we love your comments regardless. So that's going to be it for now. I'm not really sure when our next show is going to be, because there's quite a gap, so stay tuned. We'll make sure that we post and update you all when the game's going to be, when the next show is going to be. So yeah, thanks for checking in. Wave everybody. Thanks for coming, you guys, and check out the national team game on Thursday. Bye.